Now, Germany played host this week to the world's richest democracies, the G7, as leaders gathered in a Bavarian mountain resort to discuss the problems they all face. Most of all, the war in Ukraine and its many consequences. To get a better understanding of the impact of the summit, let's cross over to William Glucroft in Berlin. He's a correspondent with our partner, Deutsche Welle. William, it's good to speak to you. What proposals did these leaders put forward?
Well, in short, money, lots and lots of money. Without getting lost in the numbers, these 7 countries were pledging tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars for various programs for various countries or groups of countries all around the world. Everything from stabilizing food security, stabilizing energy prices, support for Ukraine, and seeing to long-term reconstruction in Ukraine, saying that they will do what it takes and be supporting Ukraine for as long as it takes to fight the Russian invasion there, pledging hundreds of billions of dollars for what they call sustainable economic development to help developing countries, poorer nations, continue to develop their economies in a way that is also compatible with climate goals. And, of course, climate goals themselves, saying that they're sticking to the long-term commitments in the Paris Agreement, for example. Now, the problem here is there's lots of contradictions. For example, Germany is currently standing against or standing in the way of the European Union's efforts to do away with the combustion engine for cars. So, one hand, they're talking about committing to climate goals, climate action. On the other hand, there's many domestic issues here in Germany that's causing a bit of contradictions here. Same thing with what the G7 promised about more sanctions against Russia. This might run into problems with what the EU is looking to do or has already done when it comes to oil price caps and other kinds of restrictions on the Russian economy. So while all these groups are broadly in tune with each other, there's some details here that are competing with each other.
Right. Let's look at how this impacts countries outside the G7, countries like ours.
Well, the G7 likes to portray itself as looking out for the world, not just looking out for themselves as rich countries, but trying to help other countries along the way. Germany made that point by inviting countries like Argentina, South Africa, Senegal, India, Indonesia to the G7 as so-called partner countries to show that, sort of stand them up as symbols of democracy, as symbols of countries that the West can work with to develop those respective regions. And of course, there's politics at play here, especially when it comes to India and Indonesia. They're trying to peel India away from Russia. India has not been really on board with the sanctions against Russia and stopping oil supplies, for example, to India. Indonesia hosts the G20, the sort of the bigger version of the G7 later this year, and there's a big controversy about whether Vladimir Putin will be invited to that summit or not. Some are saying he will, some are saying he won't, some are saying he'll only come via video call. So there's an effort here to sort of bring your people in conflict even closer to you, to give them reason to see your side of things, so to speak, in addition to these lofty promises of economic development and reaching climate goals and working together on those points. There's, of course, very much geopolitical concerns at stake here.
Now, G7 meetings have been happening, for such a long time. It's not the first one. What's different about this one?
Well, of course, this is a club of countries that likes to appear very relaxed, very chummy with each other. They always meet at picturesque locations at whatever their host country is in one of these 7 countries. But, of course, it's coming against the backdrop of the largest war in Europe since World War II, against extreme economic uncertainty, the highest inflation we've seen in decades, real economic concerns here that's going to cost a lot of money and might, especially here in Germany, that's very sensitive to spending and very sensitive to debt, might push finances and stress national finances really to the brink. And at the same time, we're having a NATO summit where about every 10 years, NATO gets together and reviews what they call as their strategic concept. The last one was in 2010. Now they're coming out with their new one. And it basically aligns NATO's military goals to the security situation that it sees. Of course, 10, 12 years ago, Russia was not a threat that it is today. And they didn't even see China as a potential threat. And so NATO, the G7, the EU, all of these Western institutions are broadly in agreement on where they want to go, but they all have their small details on how they actually want to get there in terms of sanctions, in terms of confronting larger powers such as Russia and China, and finding agreement among these massive different organizations is the real challenge here.
The ever-changing face of the global big picture. Thank you so much, William. That's William Glucroft from our partners, Deutsche Welle.